In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro delivers a detailed critique of Barack Obama's presidency and his ongoing influence within the Democratic Party. Shapiro argues that Obama was never the moderate figure many perceive him to be, but rather a radical leftist who laid the groundwork for today's far-left Democratic coalition. The discussion touches on Obama's political legacy, his revived leadership role, the internal dynamics of the Democratic Party, foreign policy implications, and the cultural and policy shifts underway in America's left-wing governance. Shapiro also addresses the media's portrayal of Obama, radical Islam's influence, and corruption and mismanagement in Democratic-controlled cities and states. Ben Shapiro opens by dismantling the popular narrative of Barack Obama as a moderate and unifying figure. He asserts that Obama's policies were deeply radical, particularly in promoting racial polarization, socialized healthcare, abortion rights, and expansive transgender activism. Obama's political style, Shapiro explains, masks his radicalism with charm and eloquence, creating an illusion of moderation. This facade allowed Obama to cement his influence on the Democratic Party, under which figures like Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Rashida Tlaib emerged as his ideological successors, what Shapiro terms Obama's ideological children. Shapiro challenges the popular belief in a rift within the Democratic Party between old-school liberals and the far left, contending that these divisions are largely illusory. He quotes Obama's assertion that there is no substantive divide and that the far-left figures, including Rashida Tlaib, represent the party's leadership. Obama, Shapiro notes, embraces these radicals as integral to the party's future and intends to rebuild the coalition around their agenda, but with enhanced organizational skill and radicalism. Obama's reassertion of power signals a consolidation of the Democratic Party's leftward trajectory. A key element of the discussion focuses on Obama's political brilliance and capacity for deception. Shapiro highlights Obama's ability to package radical policies in moderate-sounding rhetoric, deceiving many Americans and the media alike. He points out Obama's skillful use of language, his media management, and his ability to avoid accountability for scandals and controversies, such as the IRS's targeting of opposition groups and the polarizing role his administration played in race relations. Shapiro contends Obama's moderate image is a crafted myth that obscures his true ideological commitments. Shapiro underscores the dramatic decline in public perception of race relations in the United States during Obama's presidency, backed by Gallup polling data. He argues that the deterioration of race relations correlates directly with Obama's tenure and his promotion of divisive racial narratives and policies like diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. He accuses Obama of being singularly responsible for worsening racial polarization and argues that this radical racial lens is foundational to the current Democratic agenda. Shapiro revisits how Obama's presidency affected the Republican Party, ironically lamenting the disappearance of the kinder, gentler GOP that once served as a loyal opposition. He recounts Obama's harsh 2012 campaign tactics against Mitt Romney, including misleading and vicious ads that contributed to the GOP's political destruction. Obama's tenure, Shapiro asserts, contributed to fracturing the Republican Party, paving the way for more extreme political polarization and setting the stage for Donald Trump's rise. Addressing Obama's foreign policy record, Shapiro dismisses the narrative of post-World War II internationalism, calling Obama's strategy leading from behind, which allowed adversaries like Russia, China, and Iran to gain power. He details the Iran nuclear deal's shortcomings, Russia's incursions in Ukraine and Syria, and the emboldening of China during Obama's administration. Shapiro contends that Obama's foreign policy, though portrayed as moderate, was a failure that undermined America's global leadership. Shapiro discusses Obama's ongoing influence through his network of communications and organizational entities, such as the Pod Save America media ecosystem, and various Democratic strategists and foreign policy operatives aligned with Obama's worldview. This apparatus continues to normalize radical left policies and ideologies, supporting figures who openly promote anti-Israel sentiments or other controversial views. Shapiro warns that this network reinforces the Democratic Party's radicalism and helps Obama maintain control. A significant segment of the podcast addresses the alignment between parts of the Democratic Party and radical Islamic groups. Shapiro highlights organizations like CAR receiving public funds, radical Democratic candidates openly supporting extremist causes, and protests in cities like New York targeting Jewish communities over Israeli policies. He notes that figures within the party defend these protests, but would likely condemn similar actions targeting mosques. This alliance, Shapiro claims, is part of a broader left-wing anti-colonial and third worldist ideology that Obama espoused early in his career. Shapiro turns to examples of governance failures in Democratic-controlled areas, focusing on California and Los Angeles. He cites investigations showing significant misuse of taxpayer funds by radical groups and criticizes local officials like LA Mayor Karen Bass for policies that have worsened homelessness and crime. The episode also touches on controversial proposals like allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections, highlighting the Democratic leadership's radical policy ambitions that contradict traditional norms. Furthering his critique of Democratic governance, Shapiro points to investigations into fraud and abuse in state Medicaid programs. He references a detailed report exposing cases where healthcare providers with criminal records receive substantial Medicaid payments, spotlighting systemic waste and inefficiency. This underscores his argument that beyond ideological radicalism, practical government management under Democrats is plagued with corruption and mismanagement. Finally, Shapiro discusses the rise of a coalition that spans radical Democrats, left-leaning New Left supporters, and factions of the former woke right who have shifted allegiances. This group shares a third worldist philosophy critical of capitalism, Western civilization, and traditional patriotism. Examples include prominent media personalities altering their views on Islam and international affairs, illustrating a significant ideological realignment that strengthens Obama's radical coalition. Shapiro reviews current developments concerning Iran's nuclear program and U.S. foreign policy efforts to contain it. He highlights the ongoing negotiations, Iranian defiance, and the strategic alliance between Iran and China. Shapiro rebuts claims that the U.S. is losing its stance in the region, citing polls indicating public confidence in U.S. leadership on the issue. He criticizes the Biden administration's approach as a continuation of the Obama-era foreign policy failures. As part of the cultural analysis, Shapiro criticizes celebrities and media figures who, he claims, promote or normalize radical left-wing thought under the guise of progressive activism. He highlights celebrity critiques of wealth and innovation that ignore the foundational role of American capitalism and innovation in societal progress. This cultural fellow traveling, Shapiro argues, helps entrench the ideological dominance of Obama's radical vision.